What's the hunter called?
Yeah, I will. It's Friday.
I think it's the only one that.
Is it the cultures or democracy?
What is that scarf?
Scarf?
Yeah.
Real Madrid.
Are you a Madrid fan?
Huh?
You're a Madrid fan?
When I went there,
I think you have to be, don't you?
yeah, low key.
Otherwise they'll like beat you up.
I wanted to get something from the shop.
Yeah.
This is the cheapest thing.
It's like if you go to what do you call it? If you go to Brazil and you say any other soccer team, I hear they just kill you on the spot.
Yeah. No,
No, they take you out back though.
no, it's worse. My friend said he didn't like soccer.
Oh.
And then
Oh, yeah.
luckily, like he said,
They call it soccer,
not
too.
Football, so they know what he's talking about.
I don't know which one it was. The center you did.
Okay, I got all four.
I think they changed some
But Nulo said yes.
Really?
He just said that Pesky needs to say yes.
I don't see Pompescu saying no.
Right? And there's like something with Palmer's on Thursday.
Oh,
And since I'm a professor, I get invited to them. So I'll be like, Pesky.
I think I missed most of those because I don't want to be around. The faculty meetings were boring enough.
Yeah.
So-
Except for I'm gonna try to buddy with a good amount of people and say, can you get me a job? Can I get a job from y'all? Or do y'all know
Sure.
somebody who can give me a job?
If you're okay with ACC, you can be besties with Jordan because he works there.
There you go.
And he was saying that they're looking for like a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah, but you have to have your master's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to find something when I graduate.
Yeah, if I have to stay in Texas, I'm probably gonna be like, hey Jordan.
So.
Oh.
Where are you trying to go?
Right now it's looking like Wisconsin or Colorado. So
Apart from religion, you know, like
Yeah.
letting go of your ego.
Oh, that's good.
All that shit,
Like,
yeah.
that's making stress.
Yeah, like being one with your inner self, being present, conscious, you know, that type of shit. Crazy shit.
Bestie. I actually printed out what we were reading today.
Just not finding out.
Bro.
it up.
I printed out what we were reading today.
Oh my god, I thought you said I just now found out what we were reading
Oh,
today.
I was like, I read.
honestly, that would have been okay.
This syllabus.
You probably could have gotten away with not
It's okay.
reading it.
Your stuff's good there.
Yeah, like
Can I get water real quick?
it's already.
Well, no, it's just how Grasso does his class.
Do you like lanes?
What?
Lanes? Is that from
No.
Lanes?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
taking this
okay.
class now.
It's worth trying if you haven't.
I thought if I took it twice,
I tried it like
then I will know how to write an essay about
But
it.
I saw like this guy on TikTok, he does like some restaurants and he went there.
But it looks like the exact same. No, I originally didn't want to take it. 'Cause we got 7 options for classes, and this one is the exact one we just took. It's like great,
You would be correct.
great. Thank you. Oh my gosh, love that.
What'd you drop for this?
I was taking this class called American Speeches. My sister lied and told me that she would take it, and then she changed her schedule, and I was gonna surprise her on the first day and be like, "Yo, what up, sis?" But then she wasn't registered for it.
Max, the readings started changing after this week though.
Oh, after Tokyo?
No, the Toquivile started changing after this week
Yeah.
as compared to last class.
What?
But also this class, I think on the thing is like 2 pages, and it's literally all you need to know is that people are people, and how we view a community is people with the same values. That's literally all that page says.
Okay. Heard.
He talks about like mores and blah blah blah, and I saw that and I checked out because I already know what it's talking about.
Gotcha. We read the Bible in the class.
You read the Bible.
Okay.
We read the Bible.
God, I fucking hope not. I'm already ready.
Come on!
I had a class in undergrad where we did read the Bible. Or at least
What
bits of it.
class?
It was a class on monotheisms.
That makes sense.
It was a lot of fun.
What happened? Yes. I do have a Bible. You're right.
I have 4 in my
How
back.
are you?
It is
Tired?
tired.
Yeah.
Around campus.
I feel like I've read that.
Enlightenment book in my bag.
Does anyone-
Oh, the Hunter?
The Bible is no longer in.
I don't know.
The
It
Gita
kept
as it
falling
was.
down, and now I just launched it up on top of the bookshelf.
You're not telling us this.
You know how I stuff.
You know what? You know, it'd be really fun. We should go to Minneapolis and take the Bible, and every time ICE is somewhere, just start reading out of the Bible, and whoever gets shot the fastest wins.
It would be me.
You don't have to go to Minneapolis for that. They're already.
You're not allowed to go to Minneapolis because you'll just get shot.
See, you
I
don't
was
have to go
curious
far.
that
You
brought
just
up
gotta go
black
like
site
30 miles.
prisons, and we were talking about the Fourth Amendment today, and I want y'all to sit in a room together, but I don't want to be there. I had a dark sense of humor, both of y'all. He was like laughing when he was talking about it too, and I was like, dude, no.
What type of prisons?
Huh? Black site prisons?
What's that?
Like secret detention camps?
Like, yeah. So
Like
they
Black
got.
Rock?
Hmm?
Like Black Rock?
No, they're called black site. Like CIA and FBI prisons.
But like personal prisons, like.
You mean like
commercial
waterboarding in
Prisons-
Guantanamo?
Yeah, like
Okay.
so the
Oh,
prisons
okay.
outside of the U.S. That way, those people aren't subject to like any human rights.
We have human rights.
You're supposed to.
Would these be distractions?
But
It's
yeah.
a distraction.
The ones the Constitution says.
Huh?
The Constitution says that we should.
The Constitution doesn't apply to everyone.
Well, when they say persons, it's
Access
also
to
kind of
these
those. I have an article for you.
But what is a person? If you can define person by excluding other people,
No, I like them.
The sun is right on me.
I have seasonal depression, let me have this.
Just a little bit.
Why don't you take recipes?
Just so it's not.
someone needs, hey, Emily, do you want to take one?
I'm still subject to firing.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Texas is an at-will state.
But it does taste like
Put it in your pocket.
No, the crap they're doing with like ICE is crazy. My stepsister's husband got deported, and because he did drugs in college. That was 30 years ago. He still got deported. And yeah, it's crazy. He spent like I think 6 months in a detention camp, which was longer than he was in prison for the drugs. It's nutty. It blows my mind because his parents were citizens, and they wouldn't give him the citizenship for whatever reason.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
For this class, I was gonna say if you bought all the books in this class on Amazon, it was like $50.
Were you able to buy the American religious culture and Greek history on Amazon?
Yeah.
Because for some reason it didn't let me. It was like this address is not allowed, and I'm like, I'm not in the middle of nowhere.
Do you want? If you send it to my place, I'll give it to you.
Probably. I'll check it again after this.
Sorry, I missed that. Were you talking to me?
I do have to pick up pizzas though.
I heard quite.
I'll text you.
It's like, hey,
I was looking at your hand, and then,
No, I
Okay,
don't.
now here.
Like Luke's already on a list to get thrown into one, so.
thank you. I don't need beans. Beans, dinner, lunch, breakfast. I'm a happy boy.
versions of it. So,
I'm a happy
That would
boy.
definitely raise the flags.
then you realize that like if you follow my location, then I leave my house.
If you're like thinking about
No,
eating
it's books and stories. So sometimes like yeah.
So like, I don't know if those.
It's a website, you can't download.
Okay, well,
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so it's still an area, so I think.
No, I grew up on my city, but they haven't destroyed it, there's now an area.
I cannot imagine how many places.
Yes.
They're
Because I
gone.
think that the.
Or if I can count,
I
it's
just think
gone.
bring about of stories.
No, me too, and my best friend.
Emily, do you get that thing where your speakers just randomly turn on?
We went back like last year and tried to read it together, and she was like, oh, we went on Google Highway. And
No, seriously.
the author of it
Like, the
posted
last
something,
prophet
and she was
says
like,
this is the
yeah.
final.
No, they just randomly turn on
This is
sometimes.
everything
You're the
for
speaker.
my account. She was like, I'm not weird.
I had my phone randomly turned off
That's
and then it's
Yeah, it was
recording.
heartbreaking.
I've had that happen to my PS4. It's crazy.
Some of them were prophets.
Or what makes it work?
Luke and I were talking about being on a list the other day. And I'm like, dude,
I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm on a list in Texas.
I
Guaranteed.
know, no, I get you, I get you. I get you.
Last year, I was representing North Korea for Model UN, so I'm sure I'm on some type of.
Just because you represented in North Korea.
Well, because I had to research it too, so I was like asking all these absurd questions, obviously barely any answers, because like, why would I be
See,
able to find?
I wish I was on a list for something cool like Luke, but no, I'm on a list for gender ideology.
I don't care if she's not book accurate.
Oh, yeah, Luke's on a list.
She is book accurate.
He studies anarchism, yeah.
If she's not book accurate, you're just racist.
You know how disappointing it is?
The Trump admin actually issued a memo they released that said that like people that advocate against like capitalism,
Does not matter. I can bleach my hair right now if you want.
communism,
Exactly. Oh my God, wait,
or
should I bleach my hair?
atheism, and all these different things are
No.
suspect being put on
I've been on a
VHS watch list. You can see that.
Well, it's because a lot of queer people do those things.
Like a slightly lighter.
I think that's
time. I think you could pull that off.
I actually had really light brown hair as a child.
I think we should unify people in a way to help them advocate for their rights better.
My hair has been this red.
wants to hear about it.
Unify.
I actually have so little hair.
Hey, no falling asleep yet.
I'm
You deprived me of the pleasure of boring you to sleep, so, you know, I gotta do my thing. How's everyone doing? We bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm seeing a lot of smiles today, so, which is nice. Let's see, we have some new folks who weren't around last time. We have Ella Jane, who is not actually enrolled in the class, but will be sitting in on a at least semi-regular basis. We have Max Zabrowski here. Max, most of you know him, of those who don't. He is a TA, so he's teaching his own course for us this semester, one of our grad students. Let's just go around there real quickly. Just give your name and stuff. Because I see people who don't know each other. At least a couple. Sorry, Amanda. We'll start with Kate.
What am I saying?
Name.
Oh, I'm Kate.
I almost tricked you. Eh? That was fun.
More information, okay.
Yeah, Kate is good.
I'm Isabel.
I'm Max.
I'm Emily.
Luke.
I'm Kennedy. I'm Sophia.
I'm Ella Jane.
I'm Rahul.
Say it again.
Rahul.
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 Yes.
I got it. And this is Dylan. So now we all know each other's names. Some people are in the class, few people are just sitting in on and off and things like that. Before we get down to business, one or two quick questions.
So I went to the bookstore because I realized that I thought that the books aren't. A lot of the books were there for me. Are all of the classes' books going to be available through the bookstore? Because they only have 3 of them for this class.
I honestly don't know. I can't remember honestly offhand.
Okay.
I mean, they're all supposed to be. Well, let me rephrase it. That the only one I'm sure is supposed to be in hardcover is this,
Yeah.
because I yelled at them
I got that one.
about that not having the right edition of that. All the other books, as far as I know, should be here, and we should have access to them. I don't know if they are online books or what have you, but people are nodding yes, so I think they're all there. Yes.
I know Stone of Hope isn't available for pickup yet, but the rest of them are.
See, they didn't tell me that. I asked them were all my books there, and they said yes.
So if Martson and Boulevard were not there, should I email them or you or?
You should email me.
Okay.
That way I'll bug them. I'm more likely to get a response. Anyone else have any book issues they need to be aware of? Isabel?
Just the same thing, is it?
Same thing as
Oh, they're both digital.
I can put them. Well, I use a website that I'm not endorsing called Anna's Archive,
Oh yeah, Anna's Archive's good.
and it allows you to download any PDF of a book.
Okay. I personally am a big fan of having hard copies of books. So I was talking about this with my 12-year-old so you can mark them up and annotate them and stuff. It helps with learning. I hate online books. But maybe that's just me. So number one, we're all good with that. Anyone have any syllabus? I'll look at, somebody will drop me a quick email reminding me so when I get back to the office I bug them.
No, apparently it's online on campus.
So all the books are available.
Apparently, yeah, I'm just stupid, I guess.
I didn't say that. Okay, for the record. Okay, that's good, so I don't have to bug them. Anyone does have problems, drop me an email, I can make a phone call. Any questions on the syllabus that we talked about last time? In case anyone looked at any problems accessing the Canvas site. I'm assuming no, but wanted to check. Okay, well, we can get down to business. Well, today's an exciting day because we're going to get into kind of the meat of what we're doing. But last class, and for the beginning part of this class, we're doing some kind of brief lectures on various kind of background topics that are going to help us understand the material and help us understand the articles in the articles and books that we're reading. The first topic we discussed was politics and consensus, right? And we made the point by way of review that a political society to be viable, to be stable, to be well-functioning, can't simply be an external order of command and obedience. Can't simply be, I got a big club, do what I tell you, I'll beat your brains out. A political society to function well needs a consensus. In part, that is procedural. There has to be an agreement about who's in charge, who makes the binding decisions for the whole community, and how is that person chosen? Person or persons chosen. How are they selected? Okay? That's what we call the procedural agreement. We also talked about a substantive agreement. A substantive agreement is an agreement about, you might say, the substance of the society, its identity. What are its principles? What are its values? What are the goals to which it is dedicated, the purposes it exists to serve? So you need such a substantive consensus. Remember the example I used last time was chaining people together who've got to figure out what to do this weekend. If they all want different things, if they all want to go in different directions, there's going to be a lot of unhappiness. It works a lot better when everyone is has agreed on certain common goals, certain common objectives. They don't need to agree on everything completely, but there have to be some common goals and common objectives that unite them together, that get them organized and pointed in the same direction, that give the public authorities their legitimacy, their binding character, their moral authority. So it's not simply I'm obeying to stay out of jail, I'm obeying because it is the right thing to do. But over and above consensus, there also is a need for something closely related to consensus. And that's something, before I move on to the second point. On consensus, we said it goes by different names in different places. Kahneman, I think, calls it a substantive consensus. He actually uses that phrase. Some other, Hunter, talks about how some people call it a background consensus. Some people call it a public philosophy. Some people call it a civil religion. Some people call it a public culture. But all those terms designate the same thing that I'm calling a substantive consensus. Over and above that, to work, a community needs a sense of solidarity. All for one and one for all. Just like a successful football team needs team spirit. We're all in this together. We're all going to work together. We're sort of a band of brothers pursuing these common goals. So a political society requires team spirit. or what's sometimes called civic amity, meaning public friendship. And the term that Hunter uses for that is the term solidarity. Solidarity means the members of a society view the rest of the society, the other individuals and groups who compose it, not as enemies, not as objects of hatred, but they view them as partners in a common enterprise, partners in a common pursuit. Also the sense of civic unity and whatnot. Hunter says, I didn't read you this, I don't think, last time. Watch and I won't be able to find it, and I think I found it this time. Over on page 32 in the Hunter reading, which was on campus, right? Some passages. I see people reaching for it, some people on computers and phones, so I'm pausing here for a minute to let people play some catch up. Are we together? Oh, right in that first paragraph on the top of 32, fourth line from the bottom of the paragraph. Any kind of meaningful democratic politics presupposes at least some minimally shared understandings and commitments that are prior to political action. If you go to the next paragraph, which says solidarity, not consensus, towards the bottom of the page, 5 lines from the bottom, he says solidarity is the complex interweaving of the rational affective psychic and sociological dimensions of human experience, things that cannot always be put into words. It would include some common ideas or ideals, but it would also include such intangibles as intersubjective resonance and intuition, things that are at least every bit as effective as they are cognitive. All together, and this is the key part here, all together these elements provide the sources of a common recognition, a sense of we-ness, a sense of usness that carries with it an element of mutual obligation. Solidarity, in this more capacious sense, defines a framework of cohesion within which legitimate political debate, discourse, and action take place. That's over again on top of 33. Everyone has that? Okay, so we have that. Then we moved on to the question of religion and politics. And we today tend to put them in kind of different compartments and think of them as unrelated, as completely separate things. We even talk about how it's bad, sometimes how it's bad to mix them together. We have to keep those things in separate compartments, or else we're going to have trouble. But as a matter of fact, that notion is problematic. Religion and politics are intrinsically connected. Not that they're necessarily the same thing, although some people, as we'll see, think they are. But there's a connection there. Politics is about how we should live together. Religion is about what human life is all about. Obviously, what we understand human life to be all about is going to affect how we live and how what we think the right way of life is. What duties and obligations we have to others, what duties and obligations we have to the body politic, what rights we have, what claims we can make over and against the body politic to say you have to do this for me or you can't do that to me. Okay, so these things there's an intrinsic connection there. They can't be completely separated. We looked at the Oakley reading, right? Last time around I read you some passages from that, and we talked about how until fairly recently in human history, religion and politics were considered basically the same thing. They were parts of the same enterprise. In the ancient empires of the Near East, the first post-tribal societies we meet, and we meet them all over the globe, these societies, they don't even have different words for religion and politics. The two were intertwined, not in the sense that the ruler wears two hats, but in the sense it's only one job. In the ancient empires, the most important task of the ruler isn't making war or collecting taxes or regulating the economy. It is attuning human life to the cosmos, performing the necessary religious rituals, the necessary religious ceremonies that keep the society in order. Keep the society, let's say, in attunement to the bigger cosmic order. And that is true in the ancient empires all over the world, South America, Asia. As he points out, in some Asian countries, it was true into the 20th century that the rulers were understood to, be responsible for performing these religious devotions. The rulers were generally regarded as divine or semi-divine. Even in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, as we move a little nearer to us in history, politics and religion were considered the same thing. The Roman emperor bore the titles High King. He also bore the title High Priest. And in the Greek polis and in the writings about the polis, we have from people like Plato and Aristotle, there's no division between the two. They understand the two as integrally related. When Plato wants to show you what a good polis looks like, he first thing he talks about is theology, meaning speech about God, right? Logos and theo. Talk about the first thing a polity has to do that's going to be a good society is be based on a proper idea of the divinity and the demands it lays on us. The very notion that religion and politics are different enterprises, as we said last time, enters history through the medium of Christianity. You start with Jesus' injunction in the New Testament, render unto God what is God, and unto Caesar's what are Caesar's. The implication is that there's a difference between God and there's a difference between Caesar. And although you have obligations to Caesar, they're not the same as your obligations to God. And this issues in a vision of society that is diarchical, as I said, or dualistic, in which there are two authorities and two laws and two communities: a political authority, the laws of the political authority, and the community of the church and the laws of the church and whatnot. This plays itself out historically, institutionally, in a distinction between church and state. That's the language we use to talk about it today, for good or ill. There are certain advantages and certain limitations. Back in earlier times, they were distinguished between the temporal and the spiritual authority, something of that nature. That's the kind of phraseology they would have used. So it is unique. This thing is kind of unique to Western civilization in that it begins in this civilizational order we eventually come to call the West. Okay, this distinction becomes part of our intellectual equipment. So now we think of religion and politics as different things. That goes back to that original distinction, the attempt to explain what it means and what it implies. And it sets off a long debate between the respective roles of the two authorities that still goes on today, and that's one of the central and unique features of Western civilization. Prior to the emergence of the West, social life was monistic. One authority regulated everything, end of discussion. Now you have competing authorities. When you have competing authorities, that could easily lead to what? Conflict, disagreement, and fighting between the two authorities. No, you don't handle this, I handle this. No, I handle this, you handle this other stuff. And that's become one of the features of Western politics. Now, I promised you last time I would read you some more passages from our friend Oakley. Now, you're probably thinking I'm just doing this because I'm a nice guy and you enjoy my dramatic readings. On the other hand, it might be relevant to, say, writing a paper in a little bit. I'm over on page 29 of my buddy Oakley here. The following: the Christian, therefore, unlike the adherents of the other popular religions prevailing in the empire, was a man of divided loyalty. Christ's statement, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's, was fraught with revolutionary implications. Why? Because implicit in it was what I hope we can now recognize to have been an almost wholly unprecedented reduction of the state to the position of a merely secular authority, stripped of that important religious dimension which it had possessed from time immemorial, and which we today in the West find so very hard to comprehend in theory. Okay, so 29. Going over to page 30, talks about how top of page 30, how Christians could not owe an absolute loyalty to any earthly society, even if it be the state, for he believed in a higher loyalty, one which transcended the merely political, and it was to this higher authority, and to this alone, that he owed his ultimate allegiance. And herein, in the divided allegiance, in this apostasy from the ancient sacral norm, lies the heart of the church-state problem in all its diverse historical manifestations. And then he points out that the revolutionary implications of this distinction were not immediately grasped. Was it like 33 AD or whatever? They were obvious. It takes centuries of argument to flesh itself out, and initially in the Roman Empire, there's an attempt, it's logical, it'd be surprising if there wasn't, to unite the two in the person of the emperor. Say, well, the empire, okay, hey, he's Caesar, he handles things that are Caesar, but he also handles the things that are God's. So there's long arguments about this before this distinction begins to manifest itself in practice. It's important to realize, says on the top of 31, that precisely because of this, the truly revolutionary political implications of the Christian teaching were not fully grasped for many centuries. And then he goes on. I have one or two more for you. And yet, I'm on 38, I'm sorry. And yet to those conscious the antiquity and tenacity of the ancient pattern of sacred monarchy, this should come as no surprise. When the Roman emperors, this is what I just said, when the Roman emperors became Christians, they did not cease at once to be the successors of the emperor gods of pagan Rome or the priest kings of antiquity. And it goes on like that for several paragraphs. Over on and one more passage, page 49. Actually 48, 49. He's talking about how in the Middle Ages, when this distinction really begins to take form in practice, the conflicts that resulted constituted the birth pangs of something new in the history of mankind, of a society in which the state was stripped of its age-old religious aura and its overriding claims on the loyal ties of men balanced and curtailed by the claims of a rival authority. A society distinguished, therefore, by an established institutional dualism and racked by the internal tensions resulting therefrom. Okay, so that was Hunter by way of review, and then at the not Hunter of Oakley, and then at the very end of class, Luke brought up a question, and it led us into a discussion of the American scene. The conventional wisdom, once upon a time, back in the day, if you go back a couple hundred years, or even longer than that, go back a couple hundred years, was that political unity presupposed religious unity. Given how people's understanding of God and our duties to Him and our responsibilities as human beings shapes politics, you needed to have a society that was religiously homogeneous. Society wouldn't work well if you had people practicing competing religions. It would lead to disagreements. It would lead to the scenario I talked about last time, remember people chained together, all wanting to go in different directions and whatnot. So religious pluralism was considered a political problem. But this, without anyone planning on it, wasn't like somebody said, let's set up an experiment to see what would happen if we do this. Without planning it, as the United States of America took shape through various historical accidents, the patterns of settlement and things like that, the United States ends up as a religiously pluralistic body politic. We're sort of stuck with it. There's nothing else to do. It's something we have to live with. So in that sense, I think on your syllabus, I'm looking here, I speak of the American experiment. I did use that phrase, stealing from the Founding Fathers and from Lincoln's speeches I've been reading recently late at night. Everyone needs something to read when they can't sleep. Why not that? America was an experiment in finding a way to make religious pluralism work. We're told this was impossible. You put all these different religious traditions together, boom, you get an explosion. Very bad things happen. But we're stuck with this. It's simply part of the reality we're dealing with. It isn't something we necessarily chose or planned on. We face the task of making it work. We face the task of managing religious pluralism in a way that doesn't cripple or undermine civic unity. And America is an experiment designed to prove designed is probably too strong, but America is an experiment that's forced to try to prove the conventional wisdom is wrong. That political unity does not require religious homogeneity. We can have a religiously pluralistic society that remains vibrant and unified. Okay? But America was also an experiment in a second sense. America was also an experiment, you might say, experiment of faith in human nature. The conventional wisdom at the time America took shape and this new country emerged from its status as an English colony and created for itself some kind of national government. The conventional wisdom was that democratic government couldn't work. Democratic government couldn't succeed. Democratic government was doomed. Setting up a democracy was the equivalent of juggling hydroglycerin tubes. Sooner or later, you're going to miss one, and very unfortunate things are going to happen. I like that one too, hydroglycerin tubes. So that was a good one. I saw Dylan smile here, son. Got to take advantage of it. Hello, Jane. You look somber. We're having fun. I spent the entire morning dealing with stupid paperwork and stupid forms and bureaucratic things, and trying to electronically sign documents that won't accept electronic signatures because their stupid website doesn't work well. Now I'm here, we're having fun. Okay, so going back to our theme, democracy was doomed. Why? Well, on one hand, if you hand political power to the majority will simply run amok. They're going to go crazy. What are they going to do? They're going to steal the belongings of those who are not part of the majority. They're going to steal the wealth of others and impoverish them. Because it's good to be rich. It's fun to have a lot of money. And they're also going to persecute those who are not part of the majority. So as Madison and 9, or no, Hamilton and 9, or Madison and 10. I believe Madison says in Federalist 10, democracies have generally been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Not an enthusiastic recommendation. Oh, sorry. That was good, wasn't it? Yeah. That's why I like Henry. She gets all the jokes. And she's sitting here voluntarily. Okay. Not to get credit.
Was this the one where he was talking about factions?
Yeah, it was Federalist number 10.
He said factions are bad.
Factions are dangerous, but we're stuck with them, like religious pluralism, which creates factionalism. One of the things that creates it, the Christ is to manage this thing and try to be successful despite the burden it places on us. So democracies were dangerous. They've been destroyed because the majority is irresponsible, unjust, and oppressive. It does stupid, self-destructive things. It destroys the economy. It, beats the crud out of people it doesn't like and strips them of their rights and things like that. But it's not just there was a problem with majorities. There was also a problem with individuals. Because democratic government, at least constitutional democratic government, gives individuals a lot of freedom to live the way they want. Okay, it's not a system where some centralized authority, controls everything and homogenizes everything and lays down detailed rules that everyone has to follow. So it leaves individuals a lot of elbow room to do their own thing. That's problematic because individuals can behave irresponsibly. Okay, and they frequently do. And the conventional wisdom said, you can't give individuals that much freedom. They're not capable of running their own lives. They're not capable of having a successful community. They need to be micromanaged by someone wiser than them and smarter than them, who can tell them what to do, and who preferably has a big club to hit them with if they get out of line. It was sort of a lesson I discovered in its own way when I used to leave like my 13-year-old and 11-year-old free to babysit their younger brothers and sisters. One time when I came up, one of the younger brothers was dangling from a tree in the backyard. They had taped him to a branch using rolls of duct tape, and I got to go get him down.
At least it was duct tape and not like Scotch tape.
What?
At least it was duct tape and not like Scotch tape.
True.
Yeah.
It was just. They never used saran wrap. They weren't that innovative. But they knew about duct tape. They had discovered that already. Or the famous what happens if you try to hit each other in the face by throwing heavy batteries. But inevitably something bad happens.
Classic, we've all been there.
Right. So the argument was the human race was like my 13 and 11-year-old who could not be. And I was a little bit like, I'm joking around trying to make this amusement. That's the case. They're too young, they're too immature, they just can't be trusted. Only a small minority of people can be trusted with a lot of freedom. Most people are too stupid, too selfish, too irresponsible, too short-sighted. You have to micromanage them or disasters happen. Throw batteries at each other. Okay? And that was the conventional wisdom. The American experiment involved an act of trust in majorities. We think that human beings can indeed govern themselves. That self-government, government of, for, and by the people, can be good government. Can be government that's responsible, government that's effective, government that is just, government that secures the good of the people rather than blowing up the whole thing. And likewise, the American experiment in democracy was based on the assumption that the average human being can be trusted with a lot of freedom. I mean, obviously there have to be some rules. Okay? Imagine what I-35 would be like if there were no traffic rules. But it's bad enough as it is, right? But individuals can be trusted with a tremendous amount of freedom. And that trust was at the heart of the American experiment. I meant to bring another book and read you some different quotations. But this book will give me a couple. We can work with this. I'm going to bet page 36. This is the Hunter book. Okay. Here, he's talking on top of page 36. He talks about the American founders. Okay. In the about 4 or 5 lines down. Even before that, as Madison puts it, a parchment buried in tyranny without the beliefs and commitments of the new nation citizens is impossible. Law rested upon some shared normative understandings. In the early republic was widely thought that, quote, the only foundation of a free constitution is pure virtue, Adams, and that virtue and morality is a necessary spring of popular government. That was Washington. And that is a chimerical idea that any form of government will secure liberty or happiness without any virtue in the people. And we might add Federalist 55. I didn't bring my copy of the Federalist on that. But Federalist number 55 talks about how Republican government, Democratic government, requires more virtue than any other form of government. But here's what I'm leading up to. Okay, the question is, where is this virtue going to come from? How is this virtue going to take shape? How do you know the populace, the people, will be the right kind of individuals that democracy needs to govern? How do you know the people to work, rather? How do you know the people will be virtuous? How do we get them virtuous, or how do we keep them virtuous? No, this is a problem in a constitutional democracy because government is limited in its scope, right? Government, in the ancient polis, government was understood as, in a very direct and real sense, an educational institution. Not that you had to take scantrons or something like that, but the first job of government, its primary function, was to mold the character of citizens. Not in the sense of having them take courses in good character, but instilling it in through law and social pressure and action. I kind of liken it to basic training in the military, right? Basic training, you don't only get factual information, you do need that, but they're also shaping and molding you, trying to imprint on you a new character and make you a different kind of person than you were before. So how are we going to keep the virtuous people virtuous? The ancient solution, government is kind of the omnicompetent moral educator. Government is sort of daddy, and the citizens is like a small child being taken care of and taught and nurtured by paternal authority. How are we going to keep these people virtuous? And the answer, from the point of view of the American founding, is the answer is going to be found in non-governmental and extra-governmental institutions. The people are going to be trained, have to be imbued with virtue, inculcated with virtue through the family and through the neighborhood, through local groups and associations of various kinds. And first and foremost among these various groups and associations are religious institutions. So America is an experiment here in which religion plays a key role. If you think about it, this is a pretty hard test. We're trying to navigate these problems with Republican virtue while juggling the ball of religious pluralism. If all the religions aren't on the same page, how are you going to end up with a citizenry who share the same outlook and the same virtue and the same orientation in life? So that's our brief problems that will come up over and over again as we move through the semester. And now we can finish the preliminary stuff and we turn our attention to our first book here, Toquevile's Democracy in America. Elegant.
So, at what point does the American experiment end? Like, not at, like, 'cause America obviously is theoretically still here, but, like, experiments have to have a starting point and an end point. And it drives me crazy that we still call it that. But, like, at what point does it end? Does it end, like, because I know you were talking about Lincoln, the initial experiment ended, and we had to add more, what do you call them? Hypotheses. That's not, we had to add more hypotheses to the experiment to make sure that it worked as well. And then we had to do it again in the 1920s with FDR. What?
1930s, FDR.
1930s, FDR. You know, so like at what point do we call it done?
We don't. It's simply an ongoing experiment. Sure. What?
Said, welcome to the simulation.
Working to the simulation. It's an ongoing experiment facing each generation. Do we have enough virtue, enough good character to meet the demands of Republican government? That's something the founding fathers worried about a lot. And the phrase American experiment was constantly thrown around by them. And even I was struck the other night reading Lincoln how many different times that phrase appears in his various speeches and proclamations. But it's not like the founders said, okay, we got a solution, we're good guys, everyone relax. Or Lincoln said, cool, we're there. It was an ongoing experiment that can fail anytime. And it's in our hands. Nobody else's. I mean, you can blame political leaders. You can blame powerful, influential individuals or institutions that have a disproportionate influence on our lives. Sure, you can do that, but at the end of the day, and that's important. I mean, I'm not saying ignore that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's up to us. Sooner or later, a democratic society is going to reflect the character of the people, their sense of justice, their commitment to the common good, their willingness to do what's necessary, not just to keep the society running for themselves, but for future generations, for those who come after us. It's an ongoing experiment, and that's going to be one of the background themes we have all semester. We're not going to hit it explicitly constantly, but it's going to be lurking in the background. We're focused narrowly on one possible source of virtue and stuff, which is, say, religion. There are other sources as well. From last semester we could talk about associational life and all sorts of other factors. But again, I would stress the hard part of it is not, we're done, we got the answer, we can relax. It's, we have to do it over and over again. Each generation has to rise to the occasion. And that should be a sobering thought. At least it is for me, the sort of thing I lose sleep over. But I get paid to worry about those kind of things. Which shows what a great world it is that I can be paid to do that. So I used to try to explain to my father what I did. Well, I read these books and I think about them and talk about them. Okay, but what do you do? What do they pay you for? Think about these books. Think about them more. Okay, well, what happens when you're done with all of them? I've never done, there are always more books, and the ones you've already read have to be returned to over and over again. So that's why Tuesdays are my happy day. And everyone in the main office finds I'm happy. That's when you come in and ask me for favors. So I'm smiling and happy. I'm trying to figure out how do we fix this gap in our budget. Anywho, Toquivile. Alexis de Toquivile is a Frenchman. Dates on Toquivile, 1805 to 1859. Okay. He is from an old aristocratic family. And he is living in very tumultuous times. The France of his day, his father was almost guillotined during the French Revolution. His father had white hair and always told him he didn't have that hair until he was getting ready to go under the guillotine. It was only days away, and when he got out, and there were constant, there were multiple republics, multiple empires every 10 years, new form of government, new political power. A republic, oh no, we're a monarchy. A monarchy, no, we're an empire. Did I say empire? We're a republic again. It's a new decade. In any case, he lives through this very tumultuous period. He is by training what we would call a lawyer or an attorney. And when we first meet Toquivile, he's a young man. He's not even 30 years old. He's something like a county judge in Texas, something vaguely like that. The actual public positions don't map precisely onto ours. And he is dreaming, although his training is in law, he's dreaming of a career in politics. And he says, someday I want to be the Prime Minister of France. I want to go down in the history books as one of these great leaders who navigates his country out of this tumult and confusion and constant civil disorder and civil war. So he dreams of a career in politics. He wants to be a lawmaker. But when we meet him, he's more or less a county judge, which is in some little province somewhere. It's not a really high profile or prestigious position, but of course he's a very young man still in his 20s. He learns that the French government wants to send a commission to the United States. And the job of the commission would be to investigate America's prisons. There's a widespread feeling that the French prison system is, to put it gently, behind the times. And they want to improve their prison system. They hear the U.S. does all sorts of interesting things with its prisons, all these different ways of organizing and stuff. So he wants to be, they're advertised for this commission, and he desperately wants to be part of it. Fortunately for him, there aren't a lot of people interested in going and touring American prisons. Doesn't sound like much of a fun vacation, does it? So he, think about it. Would you want to do that during the summer? In any case, so it turns out he gets to go, and the guy who goes with him is his best friend, even better. Okay? So they're going over to America, and they get here in 1831, and I think it's in March, I'm not sure, maybe April, and they leave in February. You can find the dates for me, Max. They leave in February 1832, that I'm pretty sure is right. So they spend about 9 or 10 months in America. Now, they don't want to come home, but they're eventually summoned, saying, what's taking you guys so long? You're running the bill, you're charging your trip to the government, get your butt back here and give us a report. So reluctantly, he's there less than 10 months. He has to return to France. And then he and Beaumont sit down to write a report on prisons, which I've never read, but I'm told it had a fair amount of impact. I've never really looked at it. It was mostly Beaumont, by the way. Tocquevile's mind was elsewhere. But he did work on it with Beaumont. He did do some of it. And the reason he doesn't give the report on prisons his kind of full, undivided attention is because he really wasn't that interested in prisons or in America's prisons. That was an excuse. He wanted to get to America to be something other than its prisons. He wants to see American democracy. So he tells us, I gotta find the passage. It's over on top of page 19, if you care, just so very brief. I saw in America more than America. It was the shape of democracy itself, which I saw. Its inclinations, character, prejudices, and passions. Okay? So he wants to study American democracy. Well, why is American democracy so... let me just hold off on going that direction for a minute. So, after getting back in early 1832, in 1835, he publishes a book. Title of the book is, get this, Democracy in America. The book becomes a bestseller, and it makes this obscure county judge, somebody who's really famous in Europe. He's invited to go to other countries and give lectures at universities and stuff. Intellectuals from all over Europe are writing him letters, praising the book and seeking his guidance and wisdom. So the book makes a big splash, 1835, and he becomes famous. Well, in 1840, he publishes a sequel to the book. There's more to be said, he says. I've barely scratched the surface, so he publishes a sequel. He can't decide what to call the sequel, so the publisher comes up with an idea. We'll call the sequel Democracy in America. Now that might sound kind of stupid, but think of movie franchises, right? With the number after the name. Yeah. The publisher saw he had a real moneymaker here. He was not going to have to get a tour of prisons to escape France and get a good vacation. The publisher. So he publishes the sequel in 1835. What you have here are both books. They're customarily today printed together as one volume. One of the oddities here, if you go into this book and get up around page 400, you run into what at page 400? The author's preface, and then a table of contents. Because on page 417, the 1840 book begins. Now, people who are real Toquivile scholars, there are ongoing debates. Are the two volumes fully consistent? Or did Toquivile change his mind on some things in between volume 1 and volume 2? That's not important for our purposes, because this isn't a course on Toquivile and his thought. So for our purposes, we'll treat them as presenting a common thesis and whatnot is fully consistent with one another. Fair enough? Now, why was Toquivile wanted to study American democracy? Well, why was that? What made that interesting to him? The answer wasn't America per se. The answer had to do with France. He believed that democracy was coming to France. It was inevitable. It could not be stopped. It may take 50 or 100 years to fully happen, but it's coming to France. It represents the future of France. And by the way, not just the future of France, but the future of all of Europe. So since Toquivile wants to be a statesman, a great statesman, right, and guide his country, he wants to know what democracy is going to be like. What benefits will it bring? What challenges will it bring with it? So he goes to visit American democracy because he believes there's a revolution sweeping the world, at least sweeping the European world. And that revolution is, he summarized it under the name democracy. Page 11. The first of a number of dramatic readings. Please hold your applause till the end of the semester. You gotta like, I mean, I see a giggle and one or two smiles. You can do better than that. Thank you. Okay.
It is the end of this. Every day is anyway.
You let it die a quiet down there. I'm on page 11. I'm roughly in the middle of the page. The second full paragraph, if you're curious. Running through the pages of our history, there is hardly an important event in the last 700 years which has not turned out to be advantageous for democracy. The Crusades and the English wars decimated the nobles and divided up their lands. Municipal institutions introduced democratic liberty to the heart of the feudal monarchy. The invention of firearms made villains and noble equal in the field of battle. Printing offered equal resources to their minds. The post brought enlightenment to the hovel and palace alike. Protestantism maintained that all men are equally able to find the path to heaven. America, once discovered, opened 1,000 new roads to fortune and gave any obscure adventurer the chance of wealth and power. If beginning in the 11th century one takes stock of what was happening in France at 50-year intervals, one finds that each time a double revolution has taken place. The noble has gone down in the social scale and the commoner gone up. As the one falls, the other rises. Each half-century brings them closer, and soon they will touch. And that is not something peculiar to France. Wherever one looks, one finds the same revolution taking place throughout the Christian world. Everywhere the diverse happenings in the lives of people have turned to democracy's profit. All men's efforts have aided it, both those who intended this and those who had no such intention, those who fought for democracy and those who were declared enemies thereof. All have been driven pell-mell along the same road, and all have worked together. Skipping down a paragraph. Whither are we going? No one can tell, for already terms of comparison are lacking. Skipping to the next paragraph. This whole book has been written under the impulse of a kind of religious dread, inspired by the contemplation of this irresistible revolution, advancing century by century over every obstacle. At this point, becoming a democracy is inevitable, and it brings us a new type of government and a new type of society. There is a huge revolution going on in our midst. And Toquivile says we need to understand this revolution in the interest of the well-being of our own country. We don't understand what's going on and how things are changing. we won't know what to do. And this revolution will just come into being without any direction or guidance. He likens it at one point to a small child, right? When you're dealing with a small child, they need to be brought up, correct? So what he might say is bringing up democracy. This new baby that's been born is this new child running around Europe. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to shape it and whatnot? So he says, very bottom of page 18, I have not even claimed to judge whether the progress of the social revolution, which I consider irresistible, is profitable or prejudicial to mankind. I accept that revolution as an accomplished fact, or a fact that soon will be accomplished. And I selected of all the peoples experiencing it, that nation which has come to the fullest and most peaceful completion. In order to see its natural consequences clearly and if possible, to turn it to the profit of mankind. I admit that I saw in America more than America. It was the shape of democracy itself, which I saw its inclinations, character, prejudices, and passions. I wanted to understand it so as to at least know what we have to fear or hope therefrom. I've endeavored to show the natural turn given by the laws of democracy when left in America to its own inclinations, with hardly any restraint. I wanted to know what blessings and what ills it brings forth. So democracy is emerging. He's seen it up close and personal in America. So he didn't just want to read about it. He didn't just want to read newspaper articles or books. He wanted to be there on the scene to really examine it and to really get to know it. So he travels around America, visiting almost every part of the country. Take care. He meets with the then president, Andrew Jackson, who he comes away from their meeting without a particularly high opinion of, shall we say, to put it charitably. He meets with Supreme Court justices, and he meets with governors and U.S. senators and members of the House. He travels out to the frontier and meets and mingles with the pioneers. He actually stays a few times, and then stays for like a week or two in a log cabin to see what life is like on the frontier. He tries to mingle with every class or group of people, spends some time with the Indians because he wanted to get to know them. What?
Sam Houston.
Did he meet him?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, we found that last class.
Okay, meet Sam Houston. Stephen Austin is the father of Texas, right? But Houston's close. Houston's close. And I've been having so much fun. My kid is doing Texas history, so talking about the Texas Revolution and the Civil War, and boy, is he sick of hearing about it. Well, let's talk about the Battle of the Alamo again. This is fun. Dad, we did that before dinner. Well, why can't we do it again? But in any case, he makes a real effort to experience the whole range of America, the rich, the poor, the educated, the uneducated, those on the frontier and those in the more, shall we say, developed areas. The only area that gets short shrift is the South. He got to spend only a very limited amount of time in the South because the French government wanted him back, and his plans to go there were ruined by blizzards and stuff, making travel hard. It wasn't easy in those days to travel around on horseback or by stagecoach. So he never really got to spend much time in the South, which he regretted. So he really wants to see kind of America in its totality, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as it were. Now, over in Europe, there were two different views of democracy. I'm exaggerating now, so there are more than two. I'm simplifying, but boiling it down. One group of people said, basically democracy's cheerleaders. Yay, democracy, team democracy. Their democracy is a great thing. It's the best form of government, it's the best possible social system. We can't wait till it's here and takes over Europe, because it's going to make things really amazing. The world is going to prosper. By prosper, I don't necessarily mean economically, although that would be included. They think democracy is a panacea that's going to solve all our problems and all the evils that have troubled mankind since the beginning of time will be swept away by this new magnificent system. So democracy is people who are real cheerleaders who see in it nothing but good, who think it's coming marks the dawn of a new epic and a better epic of human history. On the other side, there are people who hated democracy. Why they might hate it? Among other things, the reasons I told you earlier, the lack of faith in democratic majorities and in individual human beings. They thought democracy was a catastrophe. It would mark the end of civilization. It would force us back into barbarism. It was sort of the end of everything good. So democracy Europe's divided between people who think democracy is the dawn of the new dark ages, and people who see it as a utopia, the best thing ever. Where does Toquivile come down, you ask? He agrees with neither side. Democracy, he argues, like all human systems, is imperfect. It has some really good things. There are benefits that it brings to us. So, that's the good news. But there are also evils it threatens us with. It also brings in its wake certain evils. It has strengths and it has weaknesses. It has pluses and it has minuses, positives and negatives. So you ask him, okay, Toquivile, when all is said and done, is it going to be a good or bad thing? You told us it's imperfect and positive and negative, but what's the balance here? Do the positives outweigh the negatives? Do the negatives outweigh the positives? Do the weaknesses outweigh the strengths, or vice versa? Toquevile's answer is we don't know yet. He presents democracy as like a small child. I give you a 2-year-old. Is that child going to grow up to become a great humanitarian? Or is that child going to grow up to be an axe murderer? The answer is, we don't know. A lot of what happens to that child is going to depend on the influences he's subjected to. It's going to depend on the quality of his upbringing and how he is shaped and molded. And confronted with this, Toquivile says the task that confronts us is the development of a new political science. A new science of politics is needed for this new world that is coming into being. And you might say the new science of politics would have 2 dimensions to it. First dimension, kind of objectively, coolly, dispassionately understanding democracy. Looking at objectively, people tend to either love it or hate it. They see only good or they see only bad. Look, they bring their biases to it. They've made up their minds beforehand. He says, let's try to be objective. Let's not be a critic of democracy or an advocate of democracy. Let's just kind of look at it and figure out what this thing is, how it actually works. What are its strengths and what are its weaknesses? What are its good inclinations? What are its bad inclinations? We need an objective view of democracy. And that means facing up to the weaknesses. It also means acknowledging its strengths. Fair enough? That's the first element, this kind of objective understanding of democracy. The second aspect is this. We need to figure out a way to educate democracy, to ennoble it. We need to give it the education that it needs. We need to shape and mold democracy, to educate it so as to bring out its strengths, to maximize its good points, and it has many good points, and to minimize its weaknesses. Find a way to compensate for the weaknesses or keep the weaknesses in check so they don't manifest themselves. So the second one, objective in the science of politics, might say is educating democracy, ennobling it. Very bottom of page 12. The first duty imposed on those who now direct society is to educate democracy, to put, if possible, new life into its beliefs, to purify its mores, to control its actions, gradually to substitute understanding of statecraft for knowledge and inexperience, and knowledge of its true interests for blind instincts, to adapt government to the needs of the time and place, and to modify it as men and circumstances require. And then he sums up, a new political science is needed for a world itself quite new. So the second part of the political science, shape and mold, educate, the upbringing of democracy. I mean, one way of looking at the book, because we're about to kind of move towards his actual argument here, not just kind of background here, is that whereas Woodrow Wilson, you remember Woodrow Wilson, president during the First World War? Yeah. One of my least favorite presidents. But Woodrow Wilson wanted to make a world safe for democracy, right? Toquivile wants to make democracy safe for the world. I think I'm stealing that obviously from someone else. I'm not that good with terms of phrase, but as you probably gathered. But make democracy safe for the world. To turn it so, to create a situation we'll be able to look back and say, the coming of democracy, okay, it might have had some imperfections, but this thing has been a blessing. Humanity is better off with this than it was before. And to make it a blessing means finding a way so its weaknesses don't blow the thing up. Finding a way to compensate for its weaknesses, for its blind spots. Know where and how it tends to be stupid, and try to figure out a way of preventing it from making bad choices. Okay? So making democracy safe for the world. Now, before going on, I have before I guess taking a break, I have one more point I want to discuss, and then I'll let us try to catch our breath. And that has to do with the term democracy itself. Title of the book, Democracy in America. If you go through the book, democracy is all over the place. I've never tried to word count. But it's got to be there hundreds and hundreds of times. Every time you turn the page, he's talking about democracy. Not surprising, it's the theme of the book, right? But the $64,000 question is what he means by democracy. Because one of the keys to understanding the book, one of kind of the basic things you need to understand it, is that he uses democracy, he use the term democracy to refer to two different things. Use the term democracy to refer to two different things. You have to know, and sometimes it means both of those two things when he uses it. Sometimes it means only one. So we need to look at the two things he means by democracy. Do we not? Is that not the logical move? Okay. I got two nods there. That was good. Although one was sort of imposed somewhat. So, but in any case, first thing he uses the term democracy to designate is a particular type of political system, a particular type of government. Now, he doesn't use this phrase, but Lincoln did. And I will borrow the phrase to designate what Toquiville's talking about when he invokes democratic government. Democratic government is government of, for, and by the people. Of, for, and by the people. It means a system in which the people ultimately run the government. The people decide who the public officials are going to be. The people decide if these people should remain in office or be removed or replaced by someone better. The people decide ultimately what the laws are going to be. So the people are ultimately in charge. Government of, for, and by the people. Page 60. Oh, hold on. No. Yeah, page 60. I'm sorry, I was looking at 61. And I didn't see what I was looking for. Last paragraph on the page, talking about American government. There are no authorities except within itself. One can hardly meet anybody who would dare to conceive, much less to suggest, seeking power elsewhere. The people take part in the making of the laws by choosing the lawgivers, and they share in their application by electing the agents of the executive power. One might say that they govern themselves, so feeble and restricted is the part left for administration. So vividly is that administration aware of its popular origin, and so obedient is it to the font of power. The people reign over the American political world, this is the key part, as God rules over the universe. It is the cause and the end of all things. Everything rises out of it and is absorbed back into it. It is the cause of all things. Everything arises out of it, and then it ends up back within it. Democratic government. It's a fairly easy concept. But his second usage of the term democracy is a little trickier. He uses democracy to designate a certain type of social system. Not a government, a social order. So what does it mean to say that your society is organized democratically? Not your government, not public officials, but your society. What does it mean to say it's organized democratically? To understand what it means to say that a society is organized democratically, we need to look at the alternative to a democratic social system. To look at first to a society that is not organized democratically, and the great alternative to the democratic organization of society is the aristocratic organization of society. Up till this point, Toquiville thinks virtually every society in human history has been organized aristocratically. So let's look at what the hallmarks of an aristocratic social order are. Are you with me? Now, you do know you can slow me down, right, if I'm going too fast. Okay, and if there's something I'm saying that's incomprehensible, you can ask a question about it.
Is this like a new thing? Is there any precedent for him redefining democracy as a social convention, not political order?
Let's circle back to that in a minute. Let me explain what a democratically organized society is, and then we can see why he uses the term democracy there. For both that and the government. Because it wasn't that he had unlimited vocabulary, by the way. You know, he could have picked another word to designate the social order. He used the term democracy to refer to both the political system, the social system, because he thinks they have something in common. There's something that both reflect and embody. And once we lay out the democratic social order, we'll be able to talk about that. So in an aristocratic political order, there's an official class structure. Okay? The society is divided into different classes. Okay? And the law reflects this division. The laws are different depending on which class you're in. But it doesn't only, it's not just, it's understood in the customs. It's very central, as we'll see, to the society, this class system. So at birth, everyone is put into one of the social classes. How are they assigned? Is it a lottery? The answer is no, it is by birth. Who your parents are determines what class you are. And that is something really decisive that's going to shape every day of the rest of your life. And once you're born into a class, you're stuck there. There's almost no way out. You're born an aristocrat, you die an aristocrat. If you say, I don't want to be an aristocrat, sorry, you were given that identity at birth, you're stuck with it. Same thing if you're a peasant. You say, I don't want to be a peasant. Tough. At birth, you were assigned to be a peasant, and you will die in the social class you were born into. There's no way out, no social mobility, or very, very minimal social mobility. But these classes are radically unequal. The social class you're born into determines your rights. The social class you're born into determines your responsibility. There's no notion here that everyone has to follow the same laws. The laws vary, the rules vary, depending upon what class you're in. And they don't vary minimally. They vary dramatically. Radical inequality is present here. And it's not simply you're born, it's not simply your rights and responsibility, it's your standard of living. Your standard of living will be determined by the class you're born into. Doesn't matter how smart you are or how creative and innovative, doesn't matter how energetic you are. You are assigned a standard of living at birth. This is your standard of living. And you ain't going anywhere. That's going to be your standard of living. They won't let you improve it significantly. You can make some minor improvements. But just, around the edges a little bit. You can't fundamentally change it. You're an aristocrat, you live in a castle, end of discussion. You have all these servants assigned to you to meet your needs. You're born a peasant, you're born in a hovel. That's the phrase Toquivile used a few minutes ago. You're born in a hovel. No, you don't get any servants to help you out. You're on your own. So the inequality in rights and responsibilities, inequality in terms of standard of living, inequality in terms of status or respect. To be born in certain social classes means You're important. You matter. You count. To be born in other social classes is to be born to insignificance. You don't really matter. You don't really count. No one cares what you think. No one in particular cares how you're doing. The world is divided at birth into a pecking order, and your spot in that pecking order is determined at birth. Furthermore, each of the classes is kind of its own subculture. So the social class you're born in might very well, in many aristocratic societies, determine your language. Social classes might speak different languages. But it determines the clothes you wear. It's literally you have to wear, each class is sort of a uniform. And you have to wear the uniform of your class. And you're not allowed to wear the uniform of another social class. You'd be impersonating, you'd be cheating if it was a class higher than you. Not allowed, you would be in big, big trouble. You're claiming to be something that you're not. The foods you eat, going back to language, what I want to say is, in an aristocratic society, even if everyone in the country speaks the same language, as they did in some places, they speak different dialects of the same language. They have different accents and whatnot. Again, the example I've been using in recent years that doesn't work, I probably need to find a better one. But anyone familiar with Pygmalion, the famous play, or My Fair Lady, which is based on a famous movie? Remember in My Fair Lady, right? Henry Higgins, who was kind of the male lead. I auditioned for Henry Higgins in like 6th grade. They put me in the chorus and gave me the songs and said, don't actually sing. So do everyone a favor. And that was good. It kind of a little bit hurtful, but it was darn good advice. My wife and kids don't let me sing either. So, in any case, Henry Higgins is an educated upper class guy who speaks very proper English. And he has a bet with a friend that he can take a Cockney woman, a woman from the lowest social class, and train her to pass for an aristocratic woman and a woman from the aristocratic classes. And obviously they have to change her clothes, change her table manners and whatnot. But the most important first thing they need to change is her accent. She had to learn a different dialect of English. Yes, it was English, but it was the upper class English, not the Cockney English. So, what you do in your spare time, the music you listen to, everything, each class is like its own culture and its own cultural universe. Fair enough? And at the heart of an aristocratic society, and this is the key point that undergirds all the others, is what I would call an ethos of human inequality. An ethos of human inequality. By that I mean, in an aristocratic society, it is agreed that some people are better than others, and some people are superior to others, and others are inferior to others. So it only makes sense that the superior people get all the power. The superior people get to make all the rules and whatnot. Because you wouldn't want these inferior people who are stupid and don't know what they're doing to do it. And it's only fair that the superior people get all the perks. Because they're superior, so they deserve some reward for their superiority and whatnot. So it doesn't make sense that someone who's inferior to me would, have the same standard of living I have and whatnot. So this ethos of inequality, human beings are fundamentally different. Some human beings are better than others. And the whole society is organized around that commitment. You say, why would they divide people in these rigid classes and not let them out? Because human beings are fundamentally unequal. Why would there be such disparities in rights and responsibilities and wealth and power? Because people are fundamentally unequal. And the better people get to have more say and more perks and whatnot than the people who are inferior to them. So that is an aristocratic social order in a nutshell. And again, up till now, he says almost all social order in human history have been aristocratic. A democratic social order, on the other hand, a democratic social order is different. By the way, I see your beanies in here. We now have departmental beanies. Go see Melissa.
You got
Oh, that's a text next, but we have actually new departmental ones. So, okay. 75 of each.
Are you in this up?
Can you give me one?
Y'all can wait till later.
I don't know where they are, but they're there somewhere. I know they have them because I got mine. They dropped mine on my desk on Friday. So, and I think my daughter stole both of them. That's not here nor there. I have the old style beanie, and I have about 10 of them, so I'll just wear that. The old style ones between you and I were better. These might be cooler looking, but old style beanie was warmer.
So I have a question, random question, but what would you think about how some of the aristocratic elements are definitely present in democratic societies?
Hold that thought. Come back to it right at the end. Once I'm done with the democratic social order, we can talk about that. That's a big question. Democratic social order, what's it like? Well, for starters, there's no official class structure. Yeah, there are economic inequalities and whatnot in a democratic society and inequalities of power. But no one is assigned to a particular social class at birth. On an aristocratic side, it's almost like they stamp it on your birth certificate. And in a democratic society where there are inequalities and whatnot do exist, they occur in the context of social mobility. People can move around. You can be born dirt poor, living in a one-room log cabin out on the frontier, sharing your one room with your farm animals. Okay? And you can grow up to be president of the United States. Or you can grow up to become the richest person in the United States. You're not locked into any kind of standard of living. You're assigned at birth. Okay, in a democratic, there's social mobility. It works both ways, by the way. Everyone stresses upward mobility. Yeah, I can be born poor and grow up to be president. You can also be born wealthy and lose everything and end up living in the streets. No one is guaranteed a standard of living or anything. In an aristocratic society, you're born an aristocrat, that's good. You got the standard of living, it can't change. You're A-OK. Democratic society, even if you're born to wealth, you can lose everything. And people, if you watch families over generations, they go up and down and things like that. And people know that. So even if you're born, your father's rich, you've been hearing for your whole life about how your grandfather was born dirt poor and didn't have enough to eat, and how he managed to make this fortune that he passed along to your dad and that you now enjoy, and that you could be right back in living the kind of life grandpa was born into. If you don't watch yourself, you're not guaranteed anything. It's up to you. And in this democratic society, there are really no subcultures. We sort of live in one giant democratic culture. Are there dialects? Yes, but they tend to be regional, not class, right? And people tend to dress alike and do the same things. The fact that you're wearing jeans doesn't mean that you're poor, because the wealthiest people wear jeans, as do the poorest, and everyone in between sometimes dons jeans. So, there is, and, in Texas, for example, everyone loves what sport? Football. Football's the sport, right? I'm a baseball man myself, but football's pretty good second. But in any case, it doesn't matter if you're a rich person. Rich people like football too. Everyone loves hamburgers, right? And barbecue. It's not like only rich people eat barbecue. Poor people can't go there. Common food. People more or less speak alike, and things of that nature. Don't I take care of you guys? Meanies. Okay.
He's off of me, actually.
What?
He's off of me. Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. You lose. I am sure she will be generous. So, in any case, we all tend to inhabit a common social universe. From the fact the way someone dresses or their accent, that doesn't necessarily identify their place in some sort of social pecking order. And at the heart of a democratic society is a particular ethos. It's an ethos of human equality. It's the belief that we're, as human beings, we are all fundamentally equal. You may be wealthier than I am and drive a fancy car and live in a nicer house, but that doesn't make you better than me. And that doesn't mean I have to bow and scrape when you come into my presence. We're all equal here. We relate together. You might be the richest guy in town, but you come walking along the sidewalk downtown, and I'm walking along the sidewalk. I don't have to kneel down. I don't have to get out of your way. I don't have to bend on my head so we don't make eye contact. I relate to you as an equal. As a matter of fact, if I don't like something you've done or said, I can tell you what a jerk I think you are. We're all equal here. Nobody's better than anyone else. So a democratic society, you have this ethos of equality, that fair enough that we're all human beings and nobody's better than anyone else and nobody has to defer to anyone else. Wealth doesn't matter, anything like that doesn't matter. We're all human beings here. Political democracy and social democracy, as it were, democratic political institution, democratic social institution. Why does he use the same word to designate them? Is there something they share in common that unifies them? Even though one's the form of government, one's the social system. The answer is there is something that unifies them. There is an underlying principle undergirding them. And that underlying principle begins with E. We can play hangman if we have to. Anyone know? Equality. Right? Democracy, we all get to vote. And we, the voters, choose the senators and the state legislators and the presidents and stuff like that. We are all equal. And those people who are elected to these powerful offices, they only get to hold on to these offices as long as we're happy. If we don't like the governor, next 2 years in some places, 4 years in others, we replace him with somebody else. So political democracy is based on this idea of equality, and so is the democratic social system. what unites us as human beings outweighs our differences. Because some people are, as a matter of fact, more intelligent than others, more thoughtful, or more athletic, or whatever going down the list. But what counts is what we have in common. That's much more important than what things that separate us. Now I'll turn. We together? I will turn. Oh, we've gone for a long time. I'll turn. We'll take a break in just a minute. But longer than I thought. Luke, you had a question for me before. I said, wait. It's your time.
Oh, like when you were describing like the aristocratic order, like some of it seemed like very close to home with what we consider to be democratic society. Like,
Explain.
something like that. You said that there's no distinct classes, but like maybe not like by law, but definitely in practice there are.
The funny thing is, though, I'm going to argue with you about that. I mean, to some extent, what you're saying is a given. There are inequalities of wealth and inequalities of power. That's a fundamental fact of life. But they take place in the context of social mobility. Nobody's locked in. And it's hard even to identify class. When you ask Americans, what class are you part of? You know what everyone says? I'm middle class.
Everybody wants to be middle class.
Right, everyone says middle class. I'm right there in the middle. I'm just an ordinary guy. Let Luke finish, then I'll go to you, Ella J.
And you said that like some in aristocratic society, some people are better than others. I would say in democratic society that exists, but in the political structure, like
Explain.
like a politician or a policeman, they have more value than a person who's just a regular citizen. Like a veteran or something. It kind of goes back to the civic religion stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but let me try to tackle that. You can tell me if I missed the boat here. First, we mentioned a veteran. We can honor people for what they accomplish. That's certainly true, but you will, and we tend to honor veterans. But I can remember a time when I was younger where veterans were not held in great respect or whatnot when I was a kid. And I had uncles who had been in the armed forces and whatnot and fought in World War II. And my wife's father taught in Korea and stuff, and that would really rankle them back in those days. And there are also, so be a veteran is to incur a certain honor, but there are veterans sleeping under bridges and on the sidewalks of our big cities.
Maybe veterans was a poor example, but take for example like JFK got a huge funeral procession, like, or any type of like the president that has like a mausoleum or something like that. The average person just gets buried in a cemetery and is forgotten. Like, our society definitely places more value to certain people.
I don't
Some
know.
people are in fact better in terms of how we view them than others.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. You honor them. First of all, there are a lot of presidents who aren't particularly popular or well regarded. But over and above that, I mean, we honor what somebody accomplished. They have a very important job serving all of us, right? It's understood as a position of service. But that doesn't necessarily make them better, and the proof is who did you say? Did you say JFK or LBJ? JFK. There are people to this day don't like JFK, and he was a very unpopular president whose re-election was in jeopardy. I mean, you don't know how it would have played out, but that would have been really interesting had he survived. Because he was.
I would just argue that from like an anarchist perspective, that there are classes, there's the people in the state and the people not in the state.
Oh, but the people in the state work for the other people, so a president can be removed from office, a senator can be removed from office. All those kinds of things can happen. They hold their office on a trust from the people who can kick them out if they are dissatisfied. If people get angry, they can kick them out. So they owe their honor because the people choose to honor them with this trust. But if the people change their mind, it all crumbles. It's not kind of intrinsic.
Influx. Yeah.
Right, influx, which goes back to issues of social mobility and issues that we're all fundamentally equal here. So, you know, you hear people say things, especially today as polarized as we are, about public officials. That in a risk, and I mean, say the public, I don't mean they're sitting in you're sitting in a bar drinking. They say, I think this guy is, you know, blah, blah, blah. An aristocratic society tries saying that about the king or the local aristocrat. It would not be well received. I mean, your buddy might agree with you, but people realized you were saying that, you would have a lot of problems because you don't disrespect your superiors, your betters. That's the attitude in aristocratic society. American society, they're doing a job for us. We chose him for this job. We chose him because we think they're eminently qualified and whatnot. At the end of the day, they put on their pants one leg at a time. Put on their leg one pants at a time. That was very bad. So last night I tried to put this sweatshirt. I thought it was a pair of pants. I was in a dark room. I didn't want to wake up my wife. So I got one leg through, hole for the head. And I tried to get another leg in one of the arms. It didn't go well. But I didn't wake her up because I fell onto the bed and stuff. My side of the bed, where nobody ventures except me and several dogs. Anywho. Well, it's true. Actually, my 12-year-old likes to sneak in there, so. But he goes to his mother's side. He said, I like hugging her. I don't like hugging you. He said, you're a dad. You smell bad. Yeah, Mom is cool. Mom is snuggling. You're not snuggling. But anywho, it is now 5:20. My mistake. I meant to stop around 5:05. Let us take a break till, it's 5:20, right? My watch is accurate. Oh, it was.
Me too, bro. I just want to be a trophy wife. Like, why is that too much to ask?
You gotta start like
With the Masters?
Yeah. Bro, I'm gonna fuck around. I'm gonna do shit, but I'm gonna do shit just to do shit, you know?
That might make you a more,
30.
Start going to golf courses.
yeah.
But it has to be a woman. I can't marry a man.
Why are they married?
Fair point.
No.
What if you married a man and then
In this day and age?
you can do stuff with women? You're only married to him in the like. The
I don't
legal
want to be
sense.
legally bound to a man. Ever. You know? That's my dilemma here, actually.
Luke's the opposite.
I don't want to get married.
But you want to be legally bound to a man.
No.
Illegally.
That's marriage.
No. I would like to have someone that I can call my spouse, but we're not actually formally married.
Yeah, why get the law involved?
Yeah.
That's so unnecessary.
So progressive.
Well, if I want to break up with him, then I can just
Sign a
be like,
contract.
okay, we're not going to break up. And I'll go for a divorce.
That means you're gonna be legally bound to me, though.
That's okay. You're not a man. What do you mean?
It's smart because you don't have to pay alimony. Yeah.
Yeah, except they can try to be a bitch and be like, well, now we're common all married.
Well, I guess y'all don't believe
Yeah,
in
but
love.
unless you file the paperwork.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Value?
Yeah, a little bit. Are you serious about staying after so?
Stallions.
Yeah, for a little bit. I need to put those abscesses in. And I know where it is now. I said it was here, right? You don't know where I live?
Yeah, we all looking for this.
You know where I live.
That's
You
why.
know where you live? You know where I live. Yeah, wrong card. No, you haven't.
Oh, was it? No, that was. Yeah, I didn't hear you. What are you telling me?
Luke, part of me was hoping that you were talking about like the difference between emos and goths and shit like that. And I know that you weren't. What? Because you said there was people who think that they're better than us.
But
I'm
yes,
not.
okay, so I'm thinking, no, I think Cottage Beach.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
What about Copper
I don't
Beach?
live at Copper Beach.
She's trying to tell me that I know where she does live. And
Oh, but.
Zoe used to
They
live in
don't
Copper
know where I live.
so where do you live? Mention, what's your function? What about you?
I live in Clairwood. I don't live in Clairwood.
Oh, by, Canes?
Yep. I have to post that on my street this weekend because I kept seeing all those videos of like the exploding trees. And I was like, I know it's not cold enough here, but I'm so
sorry,
attached
what
to the tree outside of my
videos?
window. What videos of exploding trees? They're not like
The trees get so cold that the sap inside of them expands
exploding.
and
It's
it
all AI,
explodes.
guys.
It's not like immediately so anxious.
It's not gonna happen. to
AI,
us.
that's not.
Yeah, I just don't like stuff like that.
But my apartment's like a tree house because I'm on the 3rd floor and there's just these massive trees in front of my window.
Ours are not gonna explode at
No.
20 degrees.
No, but I still watch it like a hawk in storms and everything. Because that tree goes down, my apartment loses half its value.
Amanda, did you want one?
Yeah.
I only have beige.
Imprisonment or imprisonment?
Imprisonment.
IN? It's not
You want one?
in prison, IN.
Oh, you want
IN.
one? You want one?
You lost me. I don't know what you want.
Do you want one?
It's IN.
Oh, no, I'm good. Shoot.
Imprisonment.
Here, Max. Just give this to Melissa tomorrow and be like, I want a moon one.
Thank you.
I don't want to be responsible for it.
No, I know, you can't even flip it, it's just gotta be long as crap.
You did flip it, so it looked like a
Oh, that's how I did mine. Some people are torn
How
about
do you
it.
wear these? Oh my god, I hate everything about this. Absolutely.
First
Yeah,
an
but
ass
when you do
beanie.
that, it
Oh,
looks.
this
It looks really douchey.
No, you're just doing. You have
I
this
know.
on the other side.
I have to wear like
We're just like turn.